So after I heard the noise upstairs, I went up to check and I opened the door to find my dad. He'd been stabbed right through with a sword.
I'm so sorry to hear this. But what was your father's name?
His name was Robert.
So you might say that they turned him into a shish kebab.
What? What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Anderson here, and this is Leverage Redemption Season 2, Episode 5, A Walk in the Woods Job. So this is another one where it's a good setup, got some funny moments to it, but it just gets too goofy. And especially when you get to the context of this episode and what Elliot's going through, even after he finds out his friend is still alive, what this guy is doing, how he basically got soldiers killed and doesn't really give a shit about it. I feel like that's where this episode falls flat again, because Kurlander is not a good villain for this. He's too over the top. And throughout the entire episode, he's sitting there, he keeps repeating the same story over and over again. It's supposed to be like this, haha, isn't it so funny? And then at the end, of course, he's acting all, and then jumps off the bridge, and then he's just sitting there at the end of it. This is not a real person. This is a character that the show has created, and it feels like a cartoon. And that can work in some other scenarios or some other shows, but this show and the stuff that they're dealing with, again, this guy got soldiers killed in war. That is heavy stuff. And then Elliot's dealing with the loss of a friend. Again, turns out to not be dead, but it's still heavy stuff. And you cut to this guy acting like a cartoon villain. It just doesn't mesh very well. It feels counteractive to what the story is here. And that's what really worried me, especially early on after Elliot went through this whole thing about his friend. There were even some conversations between Elliot and Harry whenever they were in the secret room at Paul's place. There was a nice conversation there that felt very down to earth, very grounded. And then they cut back to Parker, Brianna, and Sophie, and they're all sitting there talking all goofy, like they normally do. Parker falls off the building, so goofy. Sophie walks in front of the truck and gets hit, oh, it's so goofy. There's just so much about this that doesn't match the scene that we just got with Elliot, where he's dealing with the loss of his friend and being in his house. So that's unfortunately the biggest problem with this episode. It's not just a nitpick, it really is a lack of consistency. Not to mention the whole secret society thing, that was just weird. I don't know what they thought they were doing with that, but it just did not work at all. Outside of that, they randomly throw in this whole thing about the frogs that sort of came out of nowhere, and it felt like a tacked on thing to help take down the secret society as well. So unfortunately, that's kind of my main takeaway from this episode. There were some parts of it that still worked fine. I thought Harry pretending to be Elliot was pretty funny. And even just some of the moments between Elliot and Paul and Harry in the woods, they worked fine. I would even say the little bet that Sophie and Parker made, it was pretty comedic in its setup. But on the whole of it, I think the tonal disparity, I guess is the best term for it. The back and forth going from extremely goofy to extremely heavy topics, it just doesn't work. In 1 minute, it feels kind of like a kid's show, and then in the next minute, it feels like it's tackling some very heavy topics that kids aren't really going to understand. Also, one little thing that did stand out to me as just really dumb in the writing is Brianna's talking to Sophie right before she goes in to the secret society, and she tells her, as soon as you go in there, I'm going to lose you on comms. And she also says, you'll be able to still talk with everybody inside the place, but you won't be able to talk to anybody outside. Sophie goes inside. She tries to talk to Brianna. Nothing comes through. She goes, oh, I must have lost her. She asks if anybody inside can hear her. Parker responds, yeah, I think the comms work inside the place, which we just had a conversation with Brianna about literally 30 seconds ago. Why do they feel the need to talk about it again? But anyways, I think that's about it for this one. So another short review, but I think I got everything out that I needed to talk about. I really do hope that they tone down a lot of the goofiness and have some better villains as the season goes along, because I will say it's getting old very fast. Only 5 episodes in, and I'm already kind of feeling burnt out by these over-the-top silly villains and the goofy moments. I kind of want to get to an episode that's a lot more down-to-earth and grounded and serious, something that's more sentimental and doesn't kill those moments with these goofy moments. If I'm being honest, it kind of reminds me of how Marvel's gone ever since Thor Ragnarok. Just that inability to have too many serious moments without trying to cut it off with some comedy. I really hope we're not going down that path. But anyways, moving on to the next episode. I'll see you guys there. And now episode 6, The Fractured Job. This is another one. There are so many good moments in this episode. And that final scene between Elliot and his dad, so heartwarming. It got to me, and the acting between the two, fantastic. But there's so many things about this that work so well, but it keeps getting brought down because, again, the villains, they're cartoonishly evil at times, don't really act like real people. You've got the whole thing whenever they're in the Attorney General's house, all of the reactions to everything happening don't feel real. Not even just the Attorney General, his wife, whenever she gets fed up with it, it's so over the top. Like, again, you'd swear she's a villain on a kid's show with her reaction. Then the one guy who's in charge of the fracking rigs going up to Elliot's dad after the hearing, just the smug attitude that he's coming up to him. You might as well have twirled his invisible mustache as he's saying it, like, oh, we're going to build 6 more rigs. It was so ridiculous. And again, it just drags down this overall really good story. Also, they focus a lot on fracking, which has a lot of gray area as far as the good and the bad of it. And of course, they focus on all of the bad of it and basically make it seem like we might as well just get rid of it altogether without really focusing on why we have it to begin with. And that is oftentimes why stories like this, whenever they do take a stand on a topic of any kind, when you focus wholeheartedly into one side of the argument, you kind of lose a lot of your credibility. And the thing is, they even had a line with Harry early on when he's talking about, well, it's not been proven that it causes cancer. They could have had Harry be the voice of reason, maybe to say some stuff to show the good side of it, but instead he instantly gets shut down. Brianna does her little, I'm so much holier than thou look at him like, you're a terrible person because you don't think what I think. And if that were the only problem with this episode is them focusing on one side of an argument and not the other, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because obviously I've dealt with a lot worse than this because I've watched the CW DC shows. But you add that on top of the fact that these villains are just so comically evil, and it takes away so much from these moments between Elliot and his dad. It's very frustrating because we have a good episode in here trying to get out, and then we have to cut away and show some of the stupid stuff. And I will also say how they end up flipping the tables on the bad guys isn't really that satisfying in this episode either. We've had a couple of good ones this season, but this one fell really flat. First of all, it just turns into, oh, they just basically set it up so the thing will explode. Like, it's a spectacle, but it's not really a clever way to get around it. They basically just made it look bad for them. On top of that, you've got Sophie talking to the Attorney General in her own accent. There's no reaction from him. There's no moment of realization from him there. It's not until they're all standing in a group behind Elliot's dad that he finally, wait a minute, you guys are together. What? Like, dude, she was talking in that goofy New York accent, which it was really, really bad, I will say. She's typically really good with accents. I don't know what it was about this one. It sounded so fake to me. But I feel like there should have been a realization when she starts talking as herself, but there's nothing. When you think about all these moments where they flip the tables on the bad guys and there's this really clever build up to it and you really get to see the bad guys' full reaction to everything. This was just, all right, they blow it up. Elliot's dad lights the water on fire to show that there's methane in it. And that's it. Whoa. They do it all in front of a bunch of cameras as well, which means they should be seen. And this is not the first time they've done it in front of a large crowd either, and that they're the ones that save the day. And yet at the end, Elliot's talking about, yeah, we don't typically get recognition in this. How? This is not the first time you guys have been in front of a bunch of cameras helping these people. Feel like you should be a little bit more recognized, and we're just not talking about that at all. So there are a lot of problems with this episode, but thankfully the saving grace is Elliot and his dad's story is really, really good. It really did bring a lot of character out in Elliot and showed a lot more about who he is, why he's trying to help people. There is also a little bit of a side story with Sophie where she's starting to doubt herself and doubt whether what they're doing is actually helping people. I don't know where this came from. Harry's saying it has something to do with meeting Arthur Wilde. She's starting to second guess herself because she realizes what she did in the past to hurt him. It still does feel out of nowhere, though. I don't know if it's going to continue on into the next episode or not. Yeah, I'm holding off judgment on that story because while it does feel out of nowhere, they could still do something interesting with it later on this season. So we'll see what happens there. But all in all, I mean, these two episodes really showcase to me the problems with this season. You have some really good, deep emotional moments, but they're constantly undercut by the ridiculous, goofy tone that the show has at times. And like I've said before, I might be misremembering this, but I don't feel like the goofiness was to this level or this undercutting of the more serious, deep moments in the original show. So it feels like they've just turned it up to an 11 in this show and have it much more frequently. And I just don't feel like I can connect nearly as well because of those moments. So I'm really hoping that changes as the season goes on, but we'll see. For now, though, those are my thoughts on these 2 episodes, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 2? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Leverage Redemption reviews. Also, check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.